Hello and welcome to Hatherleigh, which is something I never thought I'd find myself saying. You're very welcome to the smallest population to host the Tour of Britain this year. It's not about quantity though, it's about quality, although Boasson seems to do both. Plenty of talk at the start line yesterday in Froome about how to stop the Norwegian Columbia juggernaut, but not many answers. The peloton knew something had to be done and that Exmoor was the place to do it. And when the attack came, it came from Serge Pauwels, the Belgian, heavily linked with Team Sky. He was promptly joined by Ian Stannard and Geraint Thomas, who have signed for Sky, and by Ben Swift, who's widely tipped to sign for them in the future. And here's the thing, Thomas de Gendt was on the attack too. All across Exmoor those five dangled between 3 or 4 minutes off the front, de Gendt chewing up the mountains points, Thomas taking out the sprints. As Biddeford drew closer, Ben Swift was the first to drop away, and that left 4. And then, inside 2 kilometres, there were none.
Look at this, Boasson being chased down by the German champion Reimer, and that's Russell Downing in 3rd spot. Boasson hits the line to take his 4th consecutive stage victory.
So the big winners on the day, apart from Boasson of course, who pulled out another 10 seconds over Kai Royce and the rest, were Martin Reimer, whose 6-second bonus moved him above Chris Sutton onto a podium place, and Thomas, who moved from 16th spot to 6th, just a second behind Russ Downing. He, though, continues just to fly the flag. Well, the story of the day in many ways was that British breakaway, and to watch those three work together, Graham Jones, Geraint Thomas, Ian Stannard and Ben Swift, was terrific, wasn't it?
It was. We were talking about it yesterday, hoping to see some British riders do something, and they did exactly that yesterday. They worked really well together, and it was just a little bit unfortunate that they're coming up against a very strong Columbia team.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for those who don't know, even though they ride for different teams, they actually live in each other's pockets, don't they? Geraint Thomas and Ben Swift are housemates. They share a flat, and Ian Stannard just lives around the corner as well, doesn't he?
Yeah, that's right. They know each other inside out, so they would have worked very well together, and it was just great to see that they were working so well.
They were trying to get Geraint Thomas in yellow. That was the deal, wasn't it? Allowing him to go to the front and swallow up those time bonuses available at the sprint points.
I think so, yeah. There would have been no sort of riders just sort of saying, oh, I'm not working, I'm going for the stage win. They would have all pulled really well together, but it wasn't to be.
Yeah, maybe we'll get more of the same today. Now, for those of you who aren't aware, unlike on the Tour de France, on this race, the road only closes as the race actually passes through. This is all managed by the police, and it's known as the bubble. It's a logistical nightmare, and here's how it works. Bubble doesn't do it justice, really, unless by bubble you happen to mean a cavalry charge of coppers on bikes, their job securing the safety of spectators and riders alike. It's all about communication. The Tour talking to the police talking to the Tour. The boys in Kevlar become the rolling bodyguards for the boys in Lycra.
It is a complicated process. Bob Brasher, who runs the National Escort Group, will be involved in the planning for quite some time before the races ever enter an area.
The result of it all, a rolling roadblock wrapping up the peloton at one of the most affecting sites on the Tour.
What we're trying to do is provide a protective area for the cycle race, so that as it moves along, it's described as a caterpillar system, whereby the police motorcycles go on ahead, cover junctions and other hazards as they see them. So that hopefully what happens is you end up with the cyclists protected in a form of cocoon that is then mobile, moving across the road, and that happens all the way into the finish. So hopefully they're provided with cover for the entire length of the race.
Months in the planning, days in the saddle, and split seconds to make the right decisions. An uneventful day is what makes their day.
I think the way we do it in the UK now is becoming extremely proficient. And I think year on year the reputation of the Tour of Britain is building within the professional peloton, where of course safety is so paramount.
It can get frantic at times, coming into certain big cities and stuff like that, it can get a bit frantic, but generally it works quite smoothly. It's a good system, we've used it year on year now and it works.
And if it looks sort of cool to the general public, it's not lost on the police riders either. In fact, they queue up to get involved.
To get the opportunity to come out and do this all over the country as a police motorcyclist, marvellous, thoroughly enjoy it. Get to see great bits of the country that I've not been to before. And the support that we've had along the route from all the villages, schools and everything is superb, it really is.
Well, Graham Jones, that looks unfathomably hard. Is it as hard as all that? I mean, it does just look almost impossible logistically.
It does. The problem is in Britain, it's different areas we go through. We get different levels of cooperation, particularly down in Devon and Somerset, the cooperation we get is fantastic, and we're virtually racing on closed roads, but in many other parts of the country it is quite a difficult operation.
Yeah, for many people as well, including those thousands of school kids who come out and watch the race, it's almost as exciting as the bike race, isn't it? Watching those 20 or 30 police bikes going off the front with their blue flashing lights, it's fantastic.
I've had many comments from people just sort of saying that the motorcyclists coming through is the most exciting part, but you know, we're all here to see the bike race really.
There'll be none of those tomorrow, of course, in London, but there will be today as the bubble passes through the southwest. Let's have a look at the penultimate stage of the Tour of Britain in a bit more detail. Stage 7 rolls back out of Devon and over the M5 into Somerset, and for anyone who's ever ridden in this county, the profile never flattens out, not even for a yard or two. The last climb of the day over Chinook Hollow is the last of the Tour, so that'll be it for the polka dot jersey. The route weaves in between the empty expanses of Exmoor and Dartmoor, but that won't mean it'll be sheltered. Though the forecast does look kind, Devon will have a chance to show itself off in its best light, even if the magic of television editing sometimes makes it look as if it's about to suffer a violent electrical storm. Please do not adjust your sets. This is entirely normal for the time of year. Now, sharp-eyed viewers will notice that I found it quite hard going getting to the nub of what exactly makes Edvald Boasson-Hagen tick. He's a terrific lad, but he prefers to let his bike do the talking. However, here's a fella who knows him better than most. Lars, tell me about Edvald Boasson-Hagen, because he rides his bike fantastically well, but when we interview him, it's kind of hard to get a sense of what character he is and what personality he is. He's a very quiet man, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a pretty quiet man, but he's really intelligent and serious guy. He's not liking to speak that much in the camera and be a person that's a lot in the media. But when he's on his bike, he gets a monster.
Most of world cycling is talking about Boasson-Hagen as being one of the great names of the next few years. Do you see his career just going up and up and up now?
Yeah, I do. He's not the type to take off. He's really the same guy now as he was when he came to the team in 2006. And I think because of that, he's believe in himself, but he's not taking off. He will rise more and more and have confidence in himself, and he do not let all the things with media and everything go to his head. One day he might even win a Grand Tour. Is that impossible? No, not at all. I think nothing is impossible with him, so we just have to see, and I think he can be a contender there in 2, 3, 4 years maybe. Lars Petter Nordhaug there giving us the lowdown on Edvald Boasson-Hagen. Right, we may be in the smallest town to host the Tour of Britain, but Hatherleigh has got one of the biggest hearts. A carnival passed through town about half an hour before the race. Hours and hours of preparation, a lot of fun and gallons of enthusiasm. Now, here are two more men with gallons of enthusiasm, Anthony McCrossan and Hugh Porter, to guide you through today's race.
There was a carnival atmosphere at the stage start in the historic market town of Hatherleigh this morning. This is the smallest ever town to host the start of the Tour of Britain, and they pulled out all the stops with a town crier, a parade, hundreds of kids, and Andre Burton, one of the world's best trials riders. There was stretching going on with the riders before the start, and Mayor Malcolm Jacobs waved the 93 survivors away as the race was counted out. Well, there we are, the rollout, and maybe this stage is a tad harder than yesterday's. There's one or two stinging climbs along the way. Edvald Boasson-Hagen there in the yellow jersey, looking very, very comfortable and strong. But I think maybe today we're going to get one or two riders trying to poke their nose out of the front.
Well, this is the final day for the riders on the general classification to really do some damage. And there we are, there's the jersey wearers. We've got De Gent, Boasson-Hagen, Geraint Thomas in the sprints jersey today.
So ahead of them, as I said, a tough testing course today. And it'll be interesting to see when the first attack comes. There he is then, Geraint Thomas. And what a superb bike rider he is. I mentioned in commentary yesterday, his season has been delayed due to injury and sickness, but now we're really seeing some of the class that man has. Well, that's it, kilometre zero. Now the flag has been drawn in and the race is on.
Well, the riders looking to now win the general classification, but riders at the back of this peloton are worried really about finishing in London tomorrow. I was talking to Ed Clancy before the start, and he said he was concerned about the lack of flat roads around here. Here go the riders on the attack already.
Beginning to thin out at the front, riders turning the screw and keen to get on with it. And you can already see here that the road is lipping up slightly as we're heading on towards Oakhampton, known as the walking centre of Devon, and that's right on the edge of Dartmoor National Park.
Well, we're seeing the first skirmishes of today's stage. Now, some of the teams, Hugh, last night when they finished in Bideford, rode to the hotel in Plymouth about 50 miles in preparation for the World Championships. Savini and Galdos on the attack.
Well, look at this, two teams already trying to distance themselves away from the main field, and it's still very, very early in the stage. And these are actually two danger men. They're actually only 56 seconds and 1 minute 25 seconds off the yellow jersey, so it'll be interesting to see just how much of an advantage the Columbia team give them.
Well, looking here at the man in the orange colours, the rider from the Basque Country base squad of Euskaltel Euskadi. Good to see them on the attack.
Look at this, the road absolutely filled with riders, and the crowds again turning out. These two are on the attack, early days. Welcome back, and the brace of riders with the head of the field are working very well together. It's a rider from Spain and a rider from Italy. Galdos, 29 years of age, on the Euskaltel team, looking good, and they've started the approach to the first sprint.
The first sprint of the day is in Crediton, as we see Dan Lloyd of the Cervelo test team lives down in Bournemouth in the white kit on the front of the peloton. So these two riders, their advantage still holding.
So when they get through historic Crediton, they'll have 20 miles under the wheels, and I must admit, the head of the main field, they don't look concerned at the moment, and it is the Cervelo rider that is bringing the peloton up to the back of these two, although they're trailing by about a minute at this stage.
Well, Dan Lloyd on the front of the peloton, looking after the interests, of course, of Martin Reimer, who is 21 seconds down on the general classification, the German champion, having a good race, but Dan Lloyd looking very comfortable, but it belies the speed that they're doing, which is about 30 miles an hour, near the sprint now.
And you can see the crowd there. They've turned out once again to support the Tour of Britain, waiting for the arrival of the leading two. And here they come. They're not going to sprint for it, they're just going to cross the line. And that's exactly how it is. And it's the man in the green jersey that goes over first, Filippo Savini, the Italian on the CSF Navigari squad, and his team breakaway companion Aitor Galdos in second. There's a much better sprint for the third and fourth spots. Just look at this, beginning to wind it up here. It's a lead out for the minor points. These two have taken the top spots, 5 to the first and 3 to second.
Well, of course, the Vacon Soleil team, who are there in the blue and yellow colours, looking to lead out their rider to get some bonus seconds as Russell Downing makes a move.
Look at Downing coming to the front here. He's such an energetic, effervescent little sprinter. Downing that comes from Doncaster, looking to try and take the points on the line. Oh, it was very, very close. It was Chris Sutton actually the challenge, but Downing just held him off. So Russell Downing, well, that'll be good for his pride.
Well, he'll be feeling a lot happier with his sprint there. Talking to him before the start, I asked him, is it possible to beat Edvald Boasson-Hagen? He said, yes, of course it is, and I've worked out how to do it.
Now, did you see that? The rider Galdos was actually saying something to Savini. I can't quite work out what they would be saying, whether he's saying, look, this is a good advantage for us, we need to put more effort into it, or why don't you make a bigger effort? I don't quite know. What do you think he was saying, Anthony?
Well, he was probably saying to him, right, come on, we've got the King of the Mountains ahead of us, I need you to do a little bit more work, get over the top of this with a good advantage, and we'll be away all day.
Well, the King of the Mountains, let me just tell you, all the riders today that pick up points in that competition are racing really for, well, they are racing for the minor places. That's second, third and fourth overall, because that competition was sealed yesterday by the Belgian Belgian Thomas de Gent. So he can take it easy today in the wheels and save himself, well, a tilt at a possible stage victory maybe in London.
Well, the Barlow World team in red, represented at the front by a podium finisher last year, Stephen Cummings. We're now approaching the climb, the first climb of the day, Cadbury Hill. It's pretty steep. It's no sweet shot for these riders.
Cadbury Hill coming at 26 miles. It's a second category affair. So obviously the fact that it's second cat, it's going to be a lot harder.
Well, they're onto the foothills now of the climb as Gaudos just sets the pace nice and easy, just keeping his companion with him as we go back now to the peloton, looking to set things up.
And there looks like an attack beginning to develop here. It's the red strip of Barlow World. So one of the Barlow World riders trying to go clear here. I mean, one of the riders in their team, this looks a bit like Cummings, or is it the Colombian Solar, the long rangy figure that won the King of the Mountains back in 2007 in the Tour de France? I can't recall mentioning his name throughout the whole of the Tour of Britain so far.
No, well, it is Soler. You're absolutely right, Hugh, and he has been pretty quiet in this race so far. But of course, he's had so many injuries since that King of the Mountains in the Tour.
Not letting him go, though. You will have seen that the Columbia rider Martin came up into the wheel, and Geraint Thomas, who's wearing that sprint jersey, came up into the wheel of Martin. But it is the Spaniard here, just dancing away on the pedals at the front of the breakaway. But Soler here is shaking the tree, and I tell you what, there's one or two casualties.
There looks like there's a split now in the peloton. These roads can produce a great race today. I noticed Geoffroy Lecat at the back of the group from Agritubel. This climb, Hugh, is 1.4 miles long. It's really testing.
They quite often say, don't they, in cycling, a stage race, the penultimate day is generally the last sort-out day.
Well, we're looking here as the riders make their way to the top of the King of the Mountains, and then it's 15% the descent, very steep indeed.
Gaudos sweeps over the top first from Savini. Now we wait for the arrival of the group behind to see whether the Colombian is still reinforcing his authority at the head of the field. Yes, there he is, working hard, rolling those shoulders in a determined mood.
Well, I really think that Geraint Thomas believes he can win this Tour of Britain. He's only 36 seconds down on the classification, and his teammate Soler setting a very frantic pace up towards the top of the climb, and he's making a few riders hurt here.
This is a talented little group, and you are right, he is causing a lot of damage, and the rest are profiting from the pace that he is setting. And the bunch now are beginning to fall further and further back. Now let's start to speculate about this. If they can reinforce this advantage and get down that descent and probably pick up the other two, then this is a strong group at the head.
Well, I just noticed that Pizzato, the Italian champion, is in here, and he was one of the riders who did ride the 50 miles down to the hotel yesterday, so he did about 170 miles in the legs on yesterday's stage and ride.
Well, the reason a lot of the riders are doing that, they're obviously trying to familiarise themselves with the distance of the World Professional Road Championships, which takes place just a week on Sunday, and that will be around about 165 miles. So they're using this as perfect final preparation. Look at this, Soler on the front, still going well. It's Martin's second wheel, then Geraint Thomas. 7
riders in that group as they make their way to the top of the first King of the Mountains of the day, Cadbury Hill. It's still Soler setting the pace, Thomas sitting on third wheel.
He had a cracking tour back in 2007, the Colombian. He also won a stage in that Tour to Briançon. And it is the Colombian that sweeps over the line ahead of the chasing group, and there's the rest of the positions. Martin 4th, Mortensen 5th, and Geraint Thomas 6th.
Well, they're going to settle themselves down to the job in hand as they go down this descent. 10% first of all, then really steep 15% at the bottom, but they should be hitting some pretty fast speeds.
A lot more tough sections to come on this stage as the bunch come over, and they are 28 seconds behind the chasers. So the race is now beginning to unfold. Well, these are the two riders, and they're now in Tiverton, riding through the sea of faces to the cacophony of applause.
There are 7,000 school children watching the Tour of Britain on the route in Devon today. The South West Bike Academy have visited 50 schools in 2 weeks to promote the Tour and being healthy in general and riding your bike.
Well, the 7 chasers, you just caught a glimpse of them, and the Spanish member of this leading 2 here, Galdos, looks back and he can see them coming up. Now, I don't know if he's shocked or he's happy. Reinforcements will certainly help them keep clear.
Well, we'll see these riders in the distance racing across the gap very, very soon indeed. But these 2 riders, of course, still got to concentrate on the job in hand.
And just look at the school children. This second sprint actually takes place outside Blundell School in Tiverton.
Well, there is the rider on the front from Vacon-Soleil, powering on, and Geoffroy Lecat was on the wheel.
There are the time gaps you can see clearly shown, and this is the working group now, and they are going about this very, very professionally indeed. Barlow Whirl on the front, tapping out the rhythm.
Well, you'll notice there that team of Columbia HTC on the back, the riders in yellow and white, they're doing nothing at all to contribute to the chase as they head for the sprint line.
Tell you what, Anthony, there's nobody in class today. They're all here watching the sprint, and over the line first it was Galdos with Savini in second place. So that's a reversal of the result of the first sprint. This is the gallop to the line then for the 3rd position. Let's have a look at that. Very, very close as they go to the line, slightly out of sight. We'll wait for the caption to confirm that, but they have distanced themselves slightly from the rest of the group, but they'll all come back together. But they are closing down rapidly on these 2 now, so we can expect a leading group of 9 to form shortly. There it is confirmed, last year's winner, Jeff Lecat, getting 3rd spot, and Geraint Thomas coming over the line 4th.
Well, in the motorbikes there, you can see the riders racing across, and it's the Barlow World team, but the peloton looking down the road there are in the distance.
It's incredible, this, isn't it? Really, really interesting. We've got 3 distinct groups on the road. The brace of riders ahead, then the 7, and as you said, Anthony, there is the peloton, all lined out on the left of the road as we look at it. And these 2 are now going to come together to the 7 to make 9, but are they going to be able to stay clear?
Well, of course, they're going to be a bit tired from the effort that they've put in as Geraint Thomas hits the front, but now ISD Nieri taking the front of the peloton with AG2R Le Mondial. They're not represented in the breakaway, so they've got to try and bring it back.
And it was Geraint Thomas on the front of the leading group trying to inject more pace. They've worked so hard to get across the gap. There's Nicholas Roach, the Irish national champion. He's had an interesting race so far, figured in 1 or 2 moves.
Well, it's a snaking line in the peloton as they try to bring this breakaway group back. But Barlow World, with 3 riders in the front group, really working hard. Geraint Thomas powers his way through. Soler is in there, as is Stephen Cummings.
If it comes to nothing, it really is a shame, isn't it? Because Barlow World, as you said, they've worked really, really well and read the move, bridged and got clear. And now it looks very much as though they're going to come back together. And I'll bet you a lot of the work is being done by the Columbia team. Nobody really has worked out the formula to unlock the vice-like grip that the Columbia team has on this race.
Well, you can't fault these riders for trying to win the overall classification, but it looks to me like the junction is about to be made, and it was, by the looks of things, Pizzato who was towards the front of the peloton. The breakaway has been caught.
The Italian national champion then, Pizzato, on the Katusha team. Now, what's he doing? He's actually doing a little bit of finger wagging there to 1 or 2 of the riders. He's giving them a little bit of Italian there, I think.
He is. Let's hope they understand. Well, of course, the British riders are based, most of them, in Caranta in Italy, so they'll understand exactly what Pizzato has to say.
Well, actually, there's a lull in the action now. They've just eased right back. So after the early attacks and all those skirmishes, it's now settled down, almost back to pedestrian pace compared to some of the high speeds we've seen. Now then, let's just wait. Who is going to chance his arm next?
Well, it's interesting today. This this race is different from the pattern of other days. Other days we've seen a breakaway go and then be brought back and then nothing happens. Looks like another attack starting to form.
Joker Bianchi right on the front here, and that looks a little bit like the white jersey of the national champion of Great Britain.
Well, we're on to an interesting part of this route. We've got some swooping little narrow lanes here, very tricky. So if these 2 riders can get a bit of an advantage, then it will very quickly disappear out of view.
Well, the man that was behind these 2 was actually Vladimir Karpets of the Katusha team. He moved over and he looked across as much as to say to the Columbia boys, well, you do the chasing.
Well, Joker Bianchi, who've had a great race so far, just represented in this little duo. They're just easing away from the peloton. I wonder if they're going to let them go.
Well, it looks as though they're beginning to get away from the bunch. Now, before the stage start today, Ned caught up with the Irish champion.
Nico, how's your tour been? We've seen you in a break on the odd occasion, and then we've seen you on the tarmac on another occasion. It's been a kind of mixed bag for you so far, hasn't it?
It has been. I've been pretty unfortunate with a crash. I punctured 3 times this week already in pretty crucial moments. So, the luck hasn't been on my side, but for the other part, I'm happy enough that the condition is there. And it's been a good week. We've been really lucky with the weather. There's been good crowds coming to support us, and weather, crowds, and good racing makes it a good race for the week.
It's been difficult for the other teams though to get their heads around how to beat Columbia. I mean, everything's so tight in GC. Columbia just haven't let anything go, have they?
No, I mean they show that they were just one of the strongest team on the tour, but also in the world. They're able to control the breakaway, then ride, and then lead out a sprint and win. It's it's so few teams are able to do that. Congratulations to them, and they got one of the strongest riders in the world there and top teammates. No, it's a really tough one. I reckon you could win today and tomorrow and GC. It's what can stop them.
And here they are, driving the peloton again. So anybody that goes down the road has got to face the might of that team. Well, look at that. The speculation is confirmed. It is Christian House on the front there, the British champion. Well, that's a good sight to see. And now 4 minutes, 38 seconds, the advantage.
Well, I know that Christian House was desperate to get in a breakaway in the British champion's jersey. He said when he won that in Abergavenny, his immediate thought was, I'm going to be able to wear this in the Tour of Britain.
Wonderful, isn't it? I remember him winning that event, and we're on the start of the second of the King of the Mountains climbs today. This is Trow Hill, and they reckon this is the hardest hill of today's stage. But back to that victory when he won that sprint. It was a 3-up sprint in the high street on a very hot day in Abergavenny, and it was a very popular win. He was over the moon, wasn't he, when we interviewed him?
He certainly was. He quite couldn't believe it, really. Well, just to give you an idea of this climb, Hugh, 1.1 miles in length, but it's the steepness of it. 14% this hill at some point. It's really going to test these riders out.
Well, that just underlines my comment, doesn't it, that this is perceived to be the hardest climb of the stage. Good vantage point there. They can see the two working hard, a contrast in styles as well, because House on the left, he keeps getting out of the saddle, whereas the other rider, his breakaway companion, that's Stein Rem, is quite content to just sit there and tap it out.
Well, on the front of the peloton, the Columbia team, as they talk into race radios yet again. The British champion, there you go, in the white, red and blue in a tiny gear, just keeping the impetus of that bike going forward, desperately trying to get to the top of the climb with their advantage intact.
So Team Rafa Condor will be very pleased with this development. Their manager, John Herity, a former British champion, he will have the news that Christian House has gone clear. They've had 1 or 2 good moves throughout this race. They haven't quite paid off, but they've been in the mix.
It's been Darren Lapthorne, really, who's represented that team very well during the week. But look at House as he pedals his way to the top of the climb. He is a rider who lived for a lot of the time in Austin in Texas, the home of Lance Armstrong.
About 13 years, actually, he was based there. In fact, when you speak to him, he's got that drawl, hasn't he? So he's sat nicely there in second spot, and the Norwegian at the front. National champion last year, he was on the Joker Bianchi team.
Well, this Joker Bianchi team, certainly a strong bunch of riders, good morale as the peloton near the bottom of the climb now. And Christian House, there we are, look at that. The fans cheering on the British champion. They'll be very happy to see him in the breakaway group today.
It's a very handsome lead they've got at the moment. Can they capitalise on it? They're looking pretty good, pretty relaxed, nice easy style, holding the centre of the bars, and he was just getting some information coming through because they are, remember, all wired for sound.
Well, I'm looking here at the front of the peloton now as Team Katusha now contribute to the pacemaking. They hit the bottom of the climb and the entire Columbia team lined out behind. Riders moving up, they know that they have to be near the front on this 14% gradient.
They're almost the complete length of the climb behind because these two are edging closer now to the summit, and that will be a little bit of welcome respite then as they plummet down the descent. My goodness me. This is the devil himself.
The devil is by the side of the road. I've seen everything in this race. I've even seen Smurfs today.
Well, this is it then. Summit of the climb, and once again the crowds are out to support the event. It was the Norwegian over the top first, Stein Remme, and second was Christian House.
Christian House, he's got a specially designed new bike for the Tour of Britain. It arrived on the Friday before the first stage with the colours, as you can see there, red, white and blue on the top tube and underneath the down tube as well.
It is marvellous, isn't it, to see the National Championship jersey there, that white jersey with the red and blue hoops being worn in a top international event, and all the riders struggling here up the climb, and inevitably the train near the front of the Columbia squad, and Katusha just ahead of them.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what the time gap is at the top. These two riders have crested the top of the climb, and they're going to be told now what the time gap is by the judges, the commissars there in the car.
Well, I suppose you've got to start to look at whether you think they could stay clear. It's 60 miles at the summit of that climb. Today's stage is 99, so they've got 39 more miles to work together to try and get to the finish to contest the sprint. But what really would be a good move if it's a splinter group could form and get to them to give them some added strength. That looks like Vladimir Karpets near the front again.
Well, you can see in the background just how far we've climbed. The steepness of the climb and the rise is giving some great backdrop to the peloton. But of course, in the distance, just before the finish today, Hugh, we've got a really tough little steep climb, which could be a springboard for another splinter move.
You are right, and once the race has gone over the top of this climb, then they'll follow the East Devon's Jurassic Coast, entering Sidmouth and Seaton.
Well, in the middle of the picture there is Thomas Löfqvist, who wore the pink jersey in the Giro d'Italia. Next to him is Tony Martin, Kim Kirchen next to him. But interestingly, you'll see the little climbers of CSF Navigari in green moving towards the front.
They're all happy, aren't they, just to let the Columbia team do all the pace setting, and they'll wait, I feel, for them to make the move, and then they'll see whether that group does come back, and then they'll get involved in the end action. But at the back at the moment is three riders from the Barlow World Team. So, I mean, what was it, about a half an hour ago or so, three of the Barlow World Team were at the head of the race. Now we've got three tucked in at the back.
Well, I don't think they're enjoying this climb, as we see a white jersey of the Tour de France. Tony Martin concentrating on the front of the group. Martin Mortensen, who has completely repaid the comments about Vacansoleil not being good in the climbs, is at the front yet again on the hardest climb of the day.
Well, Martin Mortensen has started the day in third place overall in the King of the Mountains, and he was a man after the opening day that did wear the jersey, but of course Thomas de Gent decided he wanted to win that classification, and he has done in some style. So another rider trying to distance himself here from the field.
As we head towards the top of the climb, over the line now, the gap 4:14. It looked like Mortensen to me.
I think it was Mortensen, so it's come down fractionally, but there's a lot more to come. Martin was fourth, Löfqvist coming over fifth, and Maxime Montfort in sixth place. So two climbs completed, one more to go.
Welcome back. Our two leaders were still out front as they came to the third and final sprint of the day. Stein Remme and Christian House. Christian House crossing the line first and picking up the 5 points for the win, but more importantly, 3-second time bonus. Their lead didn't last much longer though. Shortly after that, they sat up and were swept up by the bunch. So as we pick up commentary again on the run-in to Yeovil, it's all come back together.
Well, there is the bunch. All together now, and we are just starting the final climb of the day.
Well, this climb is the one we talked about a little while earlier. It's just under half a mile. They're going to go racing up here, turn left into a very narrow road, steep. It could be the springboard to win this year's Tour of Britain.
So they're gathering themselves here at the front now. This is the sting in the tail. Anybody that's got the strength and determination, as you say, this is the time to try and jump clear and avoid the sprint for the line, because there are a few twists and turns in the closing stages as they approach the finish. And just as I speak, look at this. That's Geraint Thomas Let's not forget he's wearing the Sprint Leaders jersey today, in case you're looking for the red colours of his Barlow World sponsor. Thomas fancying his chances and going clear.
He's taking the shortest line round that corner as Geraint Thomas, who of course started today 6th overall, 36 seconds down on the classification, stamping on the pedals now to try and break the will of the other riders.
Well, it's only just 4 miles from the top of the climb to the finish, so if he can establish a fraction of a lead, then he may just be able to capitalise on it. Look at this, damage being done at the back now, riders falling out and losing contact.
There are riders with very sore legs at the back of this peloton. You can see just how steep this climb is. It is testing everyone out, but Thomas is the man doing the damage.
He's got wings on his wheels, this fella. Look at this, he's really showing good style. Really compact effort this, and Thomas takes a cursory look back, but he's established the advantage. He's over the top first. Geraint Thomas gets to the summit of the climb, ahead of the rest. Lockfist was second, Lecat third, and inevitably the yellow jersey, Bosun Hagen in 4th spot, keeping an eagle eye out on this.
Thomas slams it in a big gear, preparing himself for the descent, but the team of Columbia HTC inevitably are going to bring him back.
Well, once again, we have to ask ourselves the question, who can crack the Team Columbia? That was a big effort, a spirited effort by the Barlow World rider Thomas, as a brace of riders now trying to go clear.
Well, none of these teams want to take Edvald Bosun Hagen to the finish line. They've been beaten for the last 4 days as the riders from Vacansoleil and CSF Navigari send some troops up the road.
Well, there we are. Another little advantage is being established here. And again, 3 more riders coming off the front of the main field. This is the kind of approach we could expect. Everybody's chancing their arm, just establishing a very, very minuscule advantage. And that could be good enough, really, to tidy up the victory.
Well, this is a good attack here from Vacansoleil and CSF Navigari. Looked to me like it might be Mortensen or Arnold van Gruen, actually, who might be on the attack. 4 kilometres to go to the finish here, Hugh. And can these two break the will of the peloton today?
Well, look, they're not in shot, so they are actually doing a good job here. What would you say? That's about 150 metres. Now then, have they got the firepower to stay away? I bet everybody actually is looking round, waiting for the Columbia team to take up the chase.
Well, that is what normally happens. So that's when suddenly you could get a breakaway actually work. Because if Columbia just say, well, we're not going to take you to the finish line, then everybody else is left wondering what to do.
Well, it is another gamble, but it's worth a gamble. It's no good waiting for the charge for the line, because they've proved they're far too strong, so they are working well. Now then, let's get this together. Come on, you need to work evenly if you want to stay away and keep the bunch at bay.
Looked to me like it might be Enrico Zen of the CSF Navigari team there in this duo, but as we look down now on the peloton, there is a line starting to form at the front, which means that the pace is starting to increase. I think the time in the lead is about to come to an end, as we see now riders being slung into the line and Team Katusha taking over.
Well, it's only just over 2 kilometres to go. There it is, confirmed. Now the team of Katusha have got some very good finishers. They've got Ben Swift and also the Italian brace of sprinters, Napolitano and Pizzato, their national champion. Now then, if they can position themselves well, maybe we may just see another team nailing a stage win.
Well, so far in this race, Pizzato finished second on stage 5. Ben Swift has had a top 3 position in a finishing sprint as well. But don't discount riders like Russell Downing. He says he's worked out how to beat Bosun Hagen into the finish. So we'll see what happens. These 2 riders, however, Hugh, let's not forget them. They're still clear, but the peloton now bring them back.
And also the speedy legs of Chris Sutton, the man that won the first stage in York. Look at this, immediately there's a reaction. Barlow World having a go on the front again, and Geraint Thomas's second wheel.
Well, the British riders really in the mix today as Stephen Cummings hits the front of the peloton, trying now to lead out G, they call him, Geraint Thomas. He's in the second wheel.
Orange jersey as well there, 4 back, Anthony. That's Escatel Escadai, and I can only imagine that that is their sprinter then, Fernandez Goldo.
Well, I'm looking here as we hit 1 kilometre to go. Pozzato is in a monster gear in the white colours of the Italian champion, trying now to move up on the outside. He surfs himself onto the wheel of Geraint Thomas.
Well, who's going to get this? You can see Pozzato back there, the national champion of Italy, but it's Barlow World cutting the pace out at the front, trying to set this one up then for Geraint Thomas, who is second back. There's Pozzato, third back in that national championship jersey of Italy. Now then, who's in the wheel of Pozzato? Is it Napolitano or Ben Swift? Here we are, this is another attack beginning to unfurl.
Rabobank take control of the front of the peloton as immediately Geraint Thomas makes a move. Pozzato has got himself fixed firmly on the wheel. Here goes Pozzato, the Italian champion.
So it is Pozzato now coming round the left-hander, and I tell you what, that looks a little bit like the style of Ben Swift. Oh, there's a crash. One of the riders has gone down. Well, it's the end of the day for him. He's not going to be involved in the sprint as they take the next turn now, and they are into the finishing funnel. It's Pozzato, the Italian champion, leading this one out. He swings over. He's going to gift this stage, I reckon, to Ben Swift. This is definitely a setup for him. Ben Swift then from Great Britain takes the stage victory. Brilliant. Ben Swift, the 21-year-old then from Rotherham in Yorkshire. He has won the stage here in the finish at Yeovil.
What a fantastic finish. Pozzato and Swift sitting up, absolutely ecstatic with that victory. Swift has chased that one all year, and now he gets the win. Look at this, one rider crashing, coming down. That gives the advantage to Pozzato, the Italian champion, and Swift powering their way into the line. Look at Swift.
Swift then coming up to the line to enjoy the glory of winning. Here he is, arms in the air. Swift wins the stage in Yeovil.
It's been 2 years since we celebrated a home winner of a stage of the Tour of Britain, but it's been 21 years of waiting for this moment for Ben Swift. And when it came, his delight was uncontained.
The team did an awesome job helping Columbia all day, and then Pozzato was helping me in the end, and carpets come up. And everyone was just really going for it. Everyone felt they had a chance today, but I just had a really good team with me. Pozzato gave me a perfect lead out, and it's quite a technical finish. I think there was a crash which gave us a bit of a gap, but Pozzato just really went for it, and then I just come round him with 150 to go and got my first pro win. So
some lead-out man then, Ben Swift, dragged to victory by Filippo Pozzato, the Italian national champion. He came second, Boasson Hagen had to acquaint himself with third, Geraint Thomas rolled in sixth, Kai Royce seventh, and Chris Sutton in eighth. So once Mum had been informed of her son's victory, it was time to take the applause. You suspect this won't be the last time he does the podium thing. Then, as sure as night follows day, Thomas de Gendt follows the words, wearer of the sprint jersey. He didn't score today, but neither did his nearest rival Martin Reimer. With only 15 points available tomorrow, it's his to keep. And with no mountain points at all anymore, this jersey's his too, provided he gets over the line in time in London. Edvald Boasson Hagen still leads the race, of course, there's no change there, but he had to settle for third place today, a touch of human frailty known as being a bit tired. We're not used to seeing you come in third place. How did it happen today?
I was working hard and started to get a little bit tired from all the stages, and I got third, and I still have the yellow jersey, so I'm really happy still.
So, barring accidents, it's hard to see anyone threatening his grip at the top of the leaderboard, despite the 10 seconds up for grabs for a stage win. Kai Royce bravely holds on to his 2-second advantage over Martin Reimer. The 3-second time bonus Christian House picked up on the final sprint of the day rewarded him with a place in the top 10. One more rider climbed off today. Sadly, Ian Wilkinson finally succumbed to the after effects of his crash back in Blackpool. And there's news of Bradley Wiggins too, who is widely reported to have signed for Team Sky this morning for £2 million. Although both Garmin's Jonathan Vaughters and Sky's Dave Brailsford, who I spoke to this morning, have moved to deny any truth in these reports. It's a story which will rumble on, you suspect. Well, it's happened at last. A British stage winner. They left it till stage 7, but it's happened. And here's his flatmate, Geraint Thomas. Your flatmate Ben Swift pulled it out of the bag today, didn't he?
Yeah, great to see him win. He's ridden so well all year, and he's just been consistently up there since March. So, he's had seconds and thirds and fourths. So it's great to see him finally get that win.
Third place on the Giro. I mean, that kind of shows, in one stage of the Giro, that shows exactly what sort of potential he's got. Describe him as a rider. What sort of rider can he become? Where does his true potential lie?
He's just a classy bike rider, you know. He can do everything: climb, sprint, you know, get over, you know, 10k climbs or whatever, and be there at the end. So he's similar to Bo Snargan, really. He's just sort of a real classy all-round bike rider and can do almost anything bar time trialing, which I think you'll be the first to admit, that's for sure.
6th place from you today. You've been inching up the GC. Any more ambitions on this tour? I mean, London, can that produce anything for you?
Obviously, it's hard, you know, on a stage like a crit like that in London, but you know, we've been trying all week, and we had a few attacks today. Really scared them a few times, I think, but obviously it didn't quite come off. But yeah, we'll keep trying and keep plugging away, and even if it's not with me, or we'll try with Merlo in the sprint or something.
Yeah, and you know that space above the mantelpiece where your Olympic gold medal hangs. Is he going to be allowed to put his trophy up there as well?
You can go in the corner, yeah. You'll have to brush away a few cobwebs, but Annie's got to polish it. I'm not touching it.
Excellent, thanks, G. Well, tomorrow is the final stage. It's in London, and who knows, we might have another British stage winner there. It's not impossible. We saw it done today.